what he said. But he did. Now, the Taxation Board of Review sat on that set of records for 2 or 3 years, some period of time, because eventually they released them, and that's when I got on the radio station. So we've jumped ahead to 1984, remembering this started in 74, and they finally released the records because we had another case lined up, because remember I had 100 clients, so we're all lining up to have a go at them. And with the next claim, I put it on again. And this time, I didn't open the boxes until I got into the courtroom or the hearing room, just to show that these were sealed boxes and the evidence was already in there. And this next chairman was Brady, and he's just as crook again. I've just forgotten how he he ignored the checks once again. But they're documents, and because they don't want to know about them, they pretend they're not there, like invisible. So that was 84, and at that stage I'd taken a few actions against Matheson and other people all over this one thing, trying to get something over, but they'd put my case aside one way or another. And eventually a man called John Trelaw, who was Matheson's offsider in that first case, I'd sued him. He was one of the group I was suing because he was involved, and he put in documents because I called for documents. Now John Trelaw was acting like the law books say you're supposed to act. I mean, according to the law books, the law's lovely, and you're supposed to get everything you need. Now John Trelaw strikes me as being a very honourable person. I haven't seen him for a long time, but he certainly put in the documents that I requested, and that included a set of government documents that had a copy of Matheson's note. The one that he picked up like this and read to me was amongst the papers that Trelaw put in. And when I saw that, then I found out that I had thought Matheson had read it the first time and made it up the second time, and that's the way I'd gone about it. But when I read this, I could see that he made it up the first time, he ad-libbed, and then the second time he read it precisely. So it changed the whole case. It was virtually a new case. And this is what I sent to Bannon and Sumner, and that's when, shortly after that, this prosecution of myself started. Now I think Bannon or Sumner or both of them or someone right at the top, and they would have to have the ability of a person like Ward, someone that knows, oh, we'll have to get a conviction against this guy, so he's got no case then. Because Ward, I told you the other session, Ward said it straight away when I said, oh, they've got some prosecution on me, and he just said, well, that's their defence. He was as quick as that. See, these guys that are really at the top of the tree, they know what they're doing. And someone of Ward's calibre said, get Robertson, because that was just a stupid thing to do. And it's only, well, look how many years I've been battling it, and it's still not resolved. So they've succeeded, well, they've succeeded so far, and that's how it happened, and that's how it flows from federal to state. And the federals certainly owe my clients a lot of money, because the term that Ward was using, I couldn't think of it the other session, is injurious falsehood. That's not necessarily what we would have gone for, but that's what Ward was thinking of, because in pretending that the checks are non-existent, it's a falsehood, and it was injurious because it caused all this trouble. I might take a break and have a drink. We haven't toasted Peter Lewis tonight, have we? Have we?
Have we tried to speak to those?
Tonight?
Tonight? Here's to Peter.
Yeah, it's Peter. Now, let's add to that Wendy Utting. Wendy Utting.
Wendy Utting?
Wendy is the foot slogger that's dug up all the information on these rotten pedophiles down there and all the others. And Wendy has been raided by the police, and I see all this on the internet. Oh, and seeing I've dropped onto it, I shouldn't laugh, but their star witness, that's Wendy's star witness and Peter's star witness, they gave them a statutory declaration that said this MP was in this homosexual gardens, the notorious place, and that's how he got named. And just in the last couple of days, an email's come up with some news reports on it, and this guy has said, I made a mistake. It's a mistaken identity. And of course, now let's toast that guy because he had the guts. Now this is to the guy, I don't know his name, I don't care very much, but this is the guy that wrongly named some member of parliament. Now I'm not toasting him for doing that, but to own up,
admitting his mistake.
Yeah. Now you take Thorpe. You take Thorpe. If Thorpe had admitted straight away to the magistrate, yes, I did it. Oh, gee, yes, I did. Well, then of course the case wouldn't have run off the tracks.
Yeah.
Now they tried to bluff their way through. Now this, unfortunately, I bet he's getting kicked around down there. But anyway, good on him for owning up. I'm not saying he did the right thing. Oh, you can't help making a mistake. I mean, he said the guy had different colour hair, but it's not funny at all. And anyway, we'll toast him down there. Now I want to get on to Robert Lawson. Most of the chaps I've been going crook about are Labor people, but Robert Lawson is the shadow Attorney General, and he's the star of the Liberal Party down, or one of the stars of the Liberal Party down there. Now Lawson was a young buck when this was going on in '74, and he was a star then because Bob Fisher, the QC, was about to become a federal judge. Now I had a very good lawyer working for me on these things at the time, Tony Gunn. He became a magistrate, and Tony said, I think Lawson's our man, we can't use Fisher anymore because he's about to go upstairs to be a judge. And Lawson is a specialist in this sort of work, and he's in the same firm as Fisher. So Tony, who was running the fight, we had a fighting fund going by then to have a go at the tax people trying to get the claims through. And Fisher had the first go, and Tony organised an appeal, and the job was given to Lawson. And Lawson dropped the case. We had paid Fisher and his firm, which therefore means we'd paid Lawson, and we had the funds in. Tony was handling it, but Lawson was engaged, and he was in funds, or if he wasn't, he should have been. It wasn't the problem. Lawson, I don't know why he didn't do the job, but Lawson pulled out. He made a deal with Anna Vickick. Anna Vickick was the Crown lawyer, quite a nice lady, and in fact she was the one that confirmed to me that it was a poison pen letter, because she said to me, it was bad luck for you that poison pen letter went in. So I got it straight from her that it was clearly a poison pen letter that started it all up. So perhaps I should drink a toast to Anna. She was a nice lady. But she wasn't nice as far as we were concerned, because she made this deal with Robert Lawson that the client could just pay his tax and not much else, and and the whole thing would be no costs against him or something like that. And Tony Gunn was horrified. Now, I went to see Lawson, and I must have seen, yes, I saw Lawson ahead of this, and I gave Lawson the transcripts that showed that Matheson was lying. And it's my view that Lawson, he didn't want to show up Matheson because, well, for any reason, I won't try and think what he was thinking. And it would also have shown up Fisher. Bob Fisher actually won a case for me in the High Court, and I got a high regard for Bob Fisher. But Bob Fisher should have checked the transcript. When I said, you've asked me for different records now. That was, see, before lunch and after lunch, and when I was questioned, I said, you've asked me for different records. Now Fisher, if he was on the ball, should have said, well, where's the transcript? Now in those days they were a bit slow, so we might have had to wait an hour. I can't be sure about that. But it should have been done, because it turned the case on that. Because it looked as if I hadn't been cooperative and I'd brought in the wrong stuff when I'd been asked this other way. Fisher agreed that I could give evidence on my client's books, and it all turned just on that. And Lawson, I think, was covering for Matheson and for Fisher, because Fisher was in his own firm. But as we know, they cover for one another anyway. Now Lawson, I've sent plenty of emails to Lawson too, and I've said, look, this is what's happened, and I've told him what I'm telling you. And I said, what about you acting or getting someone to act for us to tidy this up? And of course, I've heard nothing from Lawson. I don't want to knock Lawson's career down, because it looks like the Liberals will win the next election. I'd be surprised if Rand survives, so the Liberals should win. But with Lawson in there, and this is a big black mark against Lawson, he should do something to tidy it up, because he had all of this information with his firm, and they decided they wouldn't do it. That's what happened. And they can cook up any, well, they will say, or they did say at the time, that the client didn't want to go on with it. Yeah, well, he didn't want to go on with it because Lawson talked him out of it. And there was the rest of us, the one guy that the tax department had picked on, we were all supporting him, and we'd put up all the money. And my company, I was involved, I'd put up some money. And Lawson should have been protecting us. He had a duty to us as well as to the person. And actually, it won't hurt for me to say who it is, Jack Greenslade. Jack's a decent fellow, he's a farmer. And Jack come to see me, and I said, gee, yeah, that's a rotten deal you've got there. You're going to have to pay your tax, pay some of the costs. What'd you do this for? And he said, well, that's what he advised me to do. And I said, well, you're worse off, because the fighting fund's not going to pay your costs if you don't go on with it. And Jack may not have thought of that. But anyway, Jack actually asked me, go to the court and ask them to let me carry on, because Lawson had actually made a deal with Anna Vikic to close Jack's case off. And Jack lived a couple of 100 miles away, and I said, well, I'll phone up tomorrow. And I stood up in the courtroom, and Roma Mitchell was the judge, and she said, who are you? And I said, well, I just got a message. I didn't say, I don't know if I said who I was or not, but I said, I got a message from Jack Greenslade, because they don't want to listen to an ordinary person like me when you just stand up in the court. But anyway, I said, I got a message from Jack Greenslade. He can't get here today, but he wants to come tomorrow, and he said that he wants to go on with his case. Now, this is all on my website, because just a year or two back, through the internet, I picked up the case. And it's all there, and it tells about the deal. that was made. What I'm telling you here is on my website, and you can read the exact detail. Now, it turned out that John Doyle, who's now our Chief Justice, took over from Lawson. Now, John Doyle was also a bit of a star in Tony Gunn's eyes, and he was a good judge of... Tony was a good judge because Doyle is now the Chief Justice. So anyway, John Doyle argued for us, but he lost because Roma Mitchell found that Lawson and Vickick had made a watertight deal, and we were stuck with it. So that's Lawson, and in my view, Lawson should fix this up or get out of Parliament. He's not fit. He is not a fit man to be in a public position. Having said that, I recognise his ability, and as a person I recognise he's not a bad bloke, but there's nothing to stop Lawson from fixing this up. Look, someone that knows what they're doing could fix this up in a day. You just don't want to. So, Lawson, it's your job to get this cleaned up. Otherwise, it's the public's job to see you don't get a job. Vote you out. I better have a drink.
Having listened to what we've listened to and whatever, it strikes me that there are various problems and unwillingness of the wheels to turn in motion to get some fruition and resolve this case. But it occurs to me that it all revolves around the alleged perjury or misstatement or whatever of Barbara Thorpe. Sorry. Sorry, it's all good. Yeah, of Barbara Thorpe. And it just struck me that is there not any way that Barbara herself could take it upon herself to stand forth and be counted and actually look back on what has happened and the sequence of events and the effect, the drastic effect that statement has had on several people's lives. And if she at this point was prepared to come forth and say, I made a mistake years ago as a law student under pressure, accountant under pressure, I made a mistake, I re-edited some notes, and I can see what consequences it's had. I want to go on the record and say, yeah, hands up, made a mistake. Would that therefore not resolve the whole issue?
Stop it. Well, that sounds like a good conflict resolution idea. I'll go a step further. That Robert Lawson could contact Barbara, or Barbara Thorpe could contact Robert. Either one could start it, and whoever's listening to this could start it by getting in touch with either of those two, because that sounds like a good idea. See, if Barbara did what Jake's just suggesting and said, yes, I made a mistake, well, I'd be delighted, because I don't want to see Barbara in trouble. I don't want to see her in any way in trouble. The fact that I've been in trouble is bad enough, and Samo too, and other people that have had bad repercussions out of this. But whoever's listening to this, some of you must know Robert Lawson, obviously, because I'm going to send this tape down to all the MPs, so you all know Robert Lawson. So why don't you ask Robert to chase up Barbara? Now Barbara, as far as I know, is remarried, so she's got a different name now. I think that's the situation. So, but anyway, the wheels, you must know how the wheels work, and why don't you have a bit of a chat about it? And I think it's a great idea, Jake. And I think the people that are listening, it's up to you. I've said before, It's your fault. That was as far as Zelling was concerned. Now, if you let this thing carry on any further after such a good idea from Jake, it's your fault again. So do something about it. You got any more questions? I might get scared up
I do
again.
have another question. Because I didn't realise until earlier in the conversation you'd actually served a prison sentence. Yeah, well, that's something obviously I didn't know about you, which is quite a major thing to have to endure. So when, excuse my ignorance, but when you're convicted, John Robertson, I hereby convict you of whatever it may be, which is my question, and then you are incarcerated for a prison term. What was your actual conviction? What were you convicted of?
Aiding and abetting Robert Simmons do these dodgy things with the companies I didn't know. And that's my first point. That's ridiculous. How can I be aiding and abetting him doing this in companies I don't even know? But Robert, I've told you in the other sequence, paid all the bills. Those companies should never have been liquidated. There should never have been an investigation. And this is where we get to it. At that meeting, when Michael David, QC, as he was, now a judge, said to me, look, we better split the case. And I'll argue Semo's case on the law. And you're only the aider and abetter, and if we win, then you haven't got anything to worry about. And I've already said, well, I couldn't get the documents, and I didn't want to fight any case that I didn't know anything about. I said, fine. Now, Michael David at that time said, Samo is the meat in the sandwich. They're after you. And right at the start, Michael David, no doubt mixing with the legal people, knew the background of it all. And he said to me, Samo's the meat in the sandwich. They don't want Samo. Now, Simon Lane has said words to Samo to confirm that they were always after me, because in effect, Simon apologised to Samo. Now, earlier on, I said this needs a Royal Commission, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it needs some conflict resolution, because this is a big blow up, because it destroyed Samo's business and my business, and it's not a joke. And you people in that Parliament House down there are responsible. Now, Robert Lawson can fix this. Now, why don't we have some conflict resolution? Why doesn't Robert get in touch with Barbara and say, well, what happened? And you can sort it out. Samo's ready to sort it out. He's a nice guy. He's down there in Adelaide. Just go around and see him. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Samo's my agent in Adelaide. So whatever deal Samo does for me is fine. Any more questions?
In relation to that, which you'll see the connection in a second, going back to something you said earlier about an MP who'd been identified in a known area in a park of homosexual behaviour, whatever, and the key witness in that event later retracted his statement and said, well, sorry, made a mistake, it actually wasn't the MP, I thought it was, I'm very sorry, the whole issue was resolved. Highly commendable if that in truth the witness realised his own mistake and unprompted came forward and said, I made a mistake. Is that likely, or in the system that I've heard about now, is it more likely that he was lent upon and put under pressure? Now, if he was lent upon and put under pressure, I could fully understand someone like Barbara's apprehension in coming forward to make such a statement if she felt that she was going to come under fire and be in any way whatsoever under pressure herself.
Well, of course, all the public servants are under pressure. They all are. I mean, they follow the leader. And Ian Ward said to me, none of them are game to step out of line. He told me that years and years ago. Because I said, how can they all keep on doing this? And that was his answer. And if we go back to this whole story, when Les Miles said, yeah, this is fine, all the public servants around him assessed all of my clients in a favourable way. And as soon as this, what's his name, Parker, shot from the hip and turned it all around, then they all went the other way. And then in the courts, whatever the government side says, the people like Telfer, not Telfer, Telfer's a good guy, Chevelle and Kelly. Kelly didn't even know what he was doing. He was trying to follow the public line, and he was trying to follow Simon Lane, and he ballsed it up. And he said what he said. I mean, they know they've got to, they know what they've got to do. It's like Alice in Wonderland. They know what the decision has to be, but they don't know how to get there. So, in Barbara's case, I haven't thought about it until you raised it, but she would certainly be under the pressure of the culture of the public service. You stick with the line. And when Peter Callaby told her to rewrite the notes, she would have just done it. And then when she was in the court, and when she dropped those notes, the poor girl, she knew what everybody in her department and everybody wanted her to do, and she went with the feel. She went with the culture.
So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, I didn't want to get onto Iraq today, but I will say this. Something's come up from Australia to me, and it's an ABC report, and Saddam did have his weapons of mass destruction destroyed in 1991, and the woman, I suppose it's Dr. Germ, anyway, whoever was supposed to destroy them, did it in front of one of Saddam's palaces. I mean, it's not a joke really, but then she wasn't going to say that she'd put him out in front of his palace. And it is really a terrible thing that she lied then to the UN inspectors. They were certainly destroyed, but she didn't want Saddam to know where she did it. They must have just tipped all this stuff out in front of the palace. And the man that's